What is going on, successful dropouts? Still no regular intro music. This will be the last episode, I promise. Still here in Costa Rica, actually. If you listened last week, kind of explained what we're doing here and kind of the situation, but I don't have a lot of my regular equipment, so just recording this pretty raw here. But this episode is the first in a new season for Successful Dropout where we do a little bit shorter episodes and we go into very specific how-tos. And I was really pleased to be able to sit down with my business partners on this one and talk about, you guessed it, business partnership for this episode. These are some amazing individuals and best friends that I've been able to work with for a little over 5 years now, and we've built a few different businesses that generate multiple six figures a year with these guys, and we're going to continue to. We have pretty ambitious plans to keep expanding those as well. So it's a really good episode. If you're looking to build a business with a business partner, what do you look for? How do you mitigate risk? What are all the things you should be considering? So I hope you enjoy. I'm sorry the audio is a little rough as well. We're living at a pretty neat place here, but it's not necessarily a studio setting. So again, a little raw, but hope you guys enjoy, and we'll look forward to regular sounding episodes next week. What is up, successful dropouts? We're here still in Costa Rica. That's why you don't hear any of the usual intro music. Having a blast over here. I think the last episode I might have mentioned that I'm here with my wife and two business partners. And to kick things off in this new season, we are going to be chatting about how to choose business partners, how to keep that relationship healthy, when you should have a business partner, when you shouldn't, what to do when things get ugly, stuff like that, because we definitely get a lot of those types of questions. And some of the things that I see you guys are starting, businesses, different ventures and stuff, you're definitely in a prime position to look for a business partner if you can find a good fit that can really help you out. But then there's also some things just to be aware of as well. So we're going to get into it, but first we should go around the table here and introduce everybody. So, Babe, do you want to start it out?
Yeah, my name is Teliah Gienger, and I am wife of Kylon and also business partner of Kylon, Landon, and Kennedy.
Awesome.
And Chelan.
And Chelan, yeah, right. We're missing Chelan. So there's between a couple different businesses, there's 5 of us. Mm-hmm. There's only 4 of us right now, so we'll have Chelan on at a later time. Ken?
I'm Kennedy Wilkinson, wife of Landon Wilkinson, business partners Landon, Kylon, Teliah, and Chelan.
And I'm Landon Wilkinson. I'm Kennedy's husband.
Landon is super great with podcast interviews.
Very excited
just
to be
mics
so
in general. I know avid listeners of the show have definitely heard me talk about these guys before, especially probably a lot of stories about Landon, a lot of the stories from the kind of rockier entrepreneurial experiences I've had usually tend to involve Landon somehow.
Happy to help.
Quite a good story having to do with jobs in Georgia that you probably remember. That was all with Landon, and still doing a lot of stuff. And then whenever I talk about the band and doing stuff with the band, that's Landon's brainchild there. So he's not as shy with the mic as he lets on.
It's true.
But yeah, so we want to talk about business partnerships because let's talk about ours for a bit. Do you want to kind of give a brief overview, babe?
Yeah. So, you and Landon became business partners first with the painting company.
Mm-hmm. Back in 2013, right? Beginning of 2013.
And then in 2015, you guys purchased a building for the yoga studio and brought Kennedy and I together, and that's how we became business partners, Ken and I. And then in October, after the juice bar had opened, Chelan was already in the mix, and you two, the boys, were in the mix, and then you brought, again, Kennedy and I together to take on the juice bar with Chelan.
So a lot of it was launching different things and then realizing, we need some help with this.
Uh-oh. And all the while, you guys were still doing the painting company at that point.
Yeah,
Together.
for a time. So all together, so you and I, Landon, have been partners for 5 years.
2013.
Yeah, so
I think.
5 years now, and you guys have been partners.
For
or
3
I guess
years.
the four of us, we've all been partners for 3 years now.
Yeah.
That's great. And
That's crazy.
what are anybody want to talk about any future plans? I know some of them we want to keep more on the DL, but as far as like where we see the partnerships headed. Well, don't everybody speak at once.
What are we keeping on the DL?
More juice bars, more yoga studios.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Oh.
Maybe we don't want to keep it on the DL.
Word's out now.
Specifics?
We have
can
the-
keep
We
on
don't
the
know
DL.
specifics, but yeah,
Yeah.
I think multiple locations of the juice bar and the
Yeah.
yoga studio
Yeah.
would be in the future.
So we
for
plan
sure.
to
Definitely.
keep working together.
Yeah.
Basically.
And teacher trainings. We talked
Yeah.
about that.
That's right. So that's what we're doing here. And do you want to talk about what we're doing here in Costa Rica a little bit?
Yeah, so Teliah and I are leading a 200-hour yoga teacher training here in Costa Rica. So I think we have like 6 different countries represented here in the group of people. And so it's been a really cool experience so far. We have about a week left. But with Tay and I, that's kind of our big goal is to launch into more teacher trainings and yoga retreats out of the country. So that's kind of a long-term goal for us. But
So there's the teacher training, the juice bar, the yoga studio, and that's pretty much it. And we're looking to expand pretty much all 3 of those.
Yeah.
Of course, at this point, it's like Landon and I have less of a role than we used to. We're pretty much like the handyman and
Not even that anymore.
yeah. Well, when it comes to building out some of these new
We'll book
places,
you
that's
out a
that's
year
where
in
we'll
advance.
step in. That's kind of our role. We'll build it, and then the gals swoop in and make it a success. So.
swooping.
So let's talk about really quick why having a business partner can be a good thing and why it can be difficult sometimes, and like when it's ideal and when it's not ideal. So who feels like they want to speak to why it could be a good thing? Bid?
Well, what was it? A couple nights ago, we were talking about the year 2015, when everything, kind of came to fruition with like the studio and the juice bar, and you were in Costa Rica, and there was the whole Georgia debacle and all of that. And I, like, thinking back on that, I can't imagine doing that like by myself. Like, there's no way that one person could have done all of that. And so I think that's when having business partners can be really essential, is when you've got a lot of things going on, you can split the tasks and kind of tackle it as a team as opposed to try to do it by yourself.
Yeah.
It lightens the load.
It lightens the load a lot.
significantly, Yeah.
A lot.
Not just during challenging times, but just through startups alone. I mean, there's a lot of things to do, and especially if it's a brand new industry you're kind of leaping into, and
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a big one.
for sure.
Yeah, I'd probably say that's the main benefit, is you can accomplish 2, 3, 4 times as much, and you can do it better, because as we'll get into and how to find the right business partner, you typically if it's good partnership, you end up with somebody that balances you out pretty well and is good at all the things you're bad at, basically. And so it kind of covers all the bases you're not you're missing. And then you're accomplishing a lot more, because I know some of you guys have talked to me about all the different stuff that we have going on, and I'll throw it out there, and your first question is like, how do you do all that stuff? And I always bring up, well, it's it's very little of it is just me. It's like it's throughout all the years it's been a team effort with all these different partners and stuff, and that's why we have all these cool businesses and assets and stuff, and why we'll have more, and it's going to be easier to continue to grow and expand.
Yeah.
So like that's I think the biggest benefit, but I think there's definitely times when you probably don't want a partner, or when it's like maybe not the right timing. So I don't know, in your guys' opinion, when would those times be? Landon, do you have any thoughts on that at all? Because I know you've definitely had an opinion on, that.
Well, talking about the podcast and discussing partnerships, the first thing I said this morning was that, tell them not to, because what we have, with Kylon and Tay here is probably, or with you guys, I guess. I gotta talk more directly to them rather than to.
It's a 1 in a million.
Yeah, it's an unusual scenario, and it's a lot like I was saying. Just read a marriage book, and that'll kind of prepare you in a lot of ways for what a business partnership is like. But I think a lot of the ways that you could avoid issues and kind of set yourself up for success is just having a really clear outline of what everybody does before you start, having it in writing. And it's really hard to do, especially if you're starting something with a friend, to try to formalize it. But I think it's really important, even if you never go back to it. Like Kylon and I had at one point in a partnership agreement. I've never read it, but that was at that point when we started it. Kind of. Luckily, we've never had to take that to litigation or anything like that in the past. We've been able to figure out issues, but it's just like, prenup in a marriage, because most partnerships aren't designed for life. It's kind of a business partnership, in my opinion, is best used as a specific goal or task to accomplish with somebody else, and then, have a course or whatever, you're free to move on, or, it's not like a marriage where it's till death do you part usually. And so, as long as both parties kind of up front know what the expectation is for the long term, that could really help, so one doesn't feel the pressure to stay because they're just locked in, or vice versa. So that probably that'd be the biggest thing, just having it in writing, figure out how to finance if somebody wants to leave a business, how to finance the buyout, and make sure the terms are up front before that could be 5 years out, but as long as you agreed to it when the waters are still, you're not emotionally invested in a business that's taken off or whatever.
You said something kind of key there, I think, which is that it's like a marriage, but it's not. It doesn't have to be the same sort of commitment, but I think that's the key point right there, is that it is very much like a marriage. So I would say, think of your different relationships in your actual romantic, significant other relationships and stuff. Think are you ready for a marriage type scenario? Because that's a lot of what business partnership is. So I would say, if you're not ready for that and the kind of commitment that takes, then it's probably just not the right time. So it is a balance. Like you're starting something or a bunch of things, and having a partner can be really advantageous, and really expedite the process, and you could build something really awesome really quick. But the partnership is kind of like another startup in itself. It's a real commitment to a relationship, like a marriage, but unlike a marriage, it's
It's defined.
Yeah, you can. It's pretty. Yeah, you can. Well, you should. That's the thing. Is most people don't. But you should define it and have a clear exit strategy. And I think another thing you said was key is that you can. Yeah, you don't have to think of it as it's forever or throughout the entire course of a business. Sometimes it can be very good, and you can even agree with a partner ahead of time. Like, we're only going to partner with this thing up until a certain point, or that's kind of what's understood. Like, maybe let's get it off the ground, and then we have a buyout strategy of some sort. That doesn't always even mean that you have to buy them out in cash and cannibalize the business immediately. It can be a different scenario, but all that's clearly outlined. So that's good. Let's move on to how. Let's assume then that you want to choose a business partner. So how do you choose the right business partner?
I was going to say, for most, like 9 out of 10 scenarios, the best scenario is where somebody has the money and somebody has the time. And those kind of partnerships are about as easy and practical and beneficial for both parties as it gets, I think. You know, if you've got a friend who is independently wealthy and has money that they want to invest for maybe an above average return, or just loan it to you,
but doesn't have the time.
But you know, that's the best partnership and most common, I think, that is really beneficial for both. But beyond that, you know, doing something where you both have the time and neither has the money, you have to really learn to work with people.
Right.
Which was our scenario.
Nobody had money, but we all had plenty of time. But no, that's a key one right there. If there was a gal the other day in the group that was talking about she wanted to start and saw an opportunity to start a laundromat, and she was saying she had, I'm trying to remember the exact scenario, but she was saying like she had the expertise, like she saw the opportunity, had even found a business that was closing down somewhere so that she could take all the machines and stuff, but didn't have the money. And you know, that's a prime scenario, I would say, to find a good partner that maybe does have the money but not the time, and then you earn, you know, what's called sweat equity in that business. So you know, that's a scenario where you could pretty realistically, you know, split, you know, 49-51 or 50-50 even, and
or
you know,
70-30
or 70-30, like that. Again, that's negotiation right there. You'll have to work that out. But you know, the one person is getting ownership for financing, and the other is getting ownership for essentially doing all the work, and then everybody benefits. Right. So
well, and I think that also, like, having a partnership like that helps to set the clear expectations or the outlines that Landon was talking about earlier, of like what the roles are.
Sweat equity becomes an hours thing too if you don't really trust the person, you know. It's like, well, did he work overtime on Saturday, you know, or is it just me pulling the extra shifts, or, you know, and then it's always you thinking you did more work, and that's always the case. You know, you're always the one that thinks, oh yeah, I'm probably doing more. And so that's where it's again that marriage concept. You have to really trust that the person, I mean, you can try to keep score and hours and all of that, but if that's what it comes to, then it's really not a practical thing to have a business partner. You know?
Right.
Well, then in a marriage, like, when is that ever healthy?
Yeah.
Like,
exactly.
I did this that one time, or, you know, it's like, so you owe me, you know? It just gets nasty.
Yeah. So if you guys haven't noticed, there's a lot of correlations here between a good marriage and or just a good relationship of any sort and a business. Like, there's not like a huge difference. I mean, I've found one of our principles through the years has generally been the relationship always comes first before the business, and so again, we're kind of on this question of what do you look for in a business partner. I would say one of those is a friendship. That's, I know that's not as practical for a lot of people, and I think it can still be done without that. We got lucky where, like, Landon and I grew up together, you know, same circles, went to like the same church. Families were really good friends, and so we had this kind of pre-existing relationship that was easy to sort of build into. But then throughout the years, I mean, arguably, we're not down here in Costa Rica as much to work together. It's to hang out, you know.
At least Kylon and I.
Yeah. We've just been doing a lot of surfing and out on the town and stuff like that. And at the end of the day, we like really, really enjoy just hanging out as friends, like all business aside. And that's been what's really powerful for us. So that would be, you know, what I would say to look for, somebody you can actually be friends with and kind of enjoy life with in addition to building the business. But
well, I think someone that aligns with your core values too, you know, especially not like as an individual, but us being married, you guys being married too, like our family values and your family values, you know, those align really well together, where if you had, you know, one side just had really great values and the other side didn't have many values at all, that could be a big
because then you have to try to make decisions together, and if you're on completely different wavelengths and you don't have that just like foundational understanding of each other's values, or just you know, how they view life, then it can be really challenging.
Those values
And
are
making
like a
decisions,
compass, you know, and guide you in your decision making.
Yeah, so having similar values and general kind of mission and like pursuits and, you know, a similar lens with which you view the world through is, I'd say definitely really powerful.
I was going to say too, if you're considering being in a business partnership with someone, I'd really recommend. I just had a meeting a couple weeks ago on a new venture that I'm doing, and I've got a partner in it that's doing the financial end, and I'm doing more of the legwork. And so we had a meeting with the lawyer to draft our partnership agreement, and that really helps determine, you know, a lot of questions that these lawyers spend, you know, get paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to solve partnership problems, and a lot of it is because the partners can't even talk anymore. And so, you know, one of the things, it's like finding somebody who you trust who can mediate a disagreement. So if it's somebody that you guys both would take their word as, you know, being an honest representation of what's the right thing in a scenario, or, you know, setting up a meeting with an attorney if you're going to do something is probably not a bad idea, just to really go over, you know, tiebreaker rules. If you guys disagree on something, is it a coin toss? Is it a, you know, a third party that you know, all those things that really practically can really save you thousands of dollars. You know, it's like it's a good investment.
Yeah. So first, what you said there was something I just thought about, which is you when you meet somebody, you can usually tell pretty intuitively if that person is pretty grounded, like what their character's like, if they have, if they're principled, you know. And so I would say you're definitely looking for somebody like that, and somebody that can communicate well. Like this person you're considering as a partner, like if things get really, really tough, are they the type of person that you can, you know, you can see yourself talking it out reasonably with them, and you know they're not going to try to do something behind your back or you know, anything like that.
That's integrity. If you don't,
the integrity,
that's the biggest single piece probably.
And so that's why ideally you're able to partner with somebody that you've known for a while, and it doesn't even hurt to like do a bit of a reference check, you know. I mean, what do their other friends say about them? Like, have they partnered with anybody else in the past? Like, how is that, you know, ended up? If they kind of have, if they've left a trail of kind of dead bodies behind them. Jeez. It's a little morbid, but
got dark.
If they just don't have a great history with, well, I would say honestly, we're talking about how similar it is to just a good relationship, like marriage. Like, look at their other relationships in life. Actually, that's a key one. Like their best friend. Like, yeah, how long have they been friends with their best friend? You know,
have they been divorced 3 times? That tends to, I mean, probably offend some people there, but that does say a lot about how you pick people or who you are. You know,
that's true.
Is their best friend, like, have they only known them for, you know, a couple of years, or is it like, have they been friends for 15 years, you know, that sort of thing? That's what you're...
Yeah.
What are you guys laughing about?
Yeah.
The communication part.
Yeah.
What about it?
That didn't come so natural to Tay and I. Or I guess me.
Came naturally to Tay. Not so
more
much
like I couldn't communicate at all. I don't know.
I was thinking of the it was like the week before we opened the studio, and like everything's almost done, construction's almost done. I think we were in our soft opening, and Kennedy would not talk to me, and I could not figure out what it was. And it was actually you boys, and you made us both come to the studio. Do you remember that?
No,
I do.
Kylan remembered.
Yeah.
You made us come to the studio because I was like, something's bothering her. She'll just talk to me whenever she's ready, or like whatever.
I remember that. I was like, you just need to go lock yourselves in a room and figure it out. Because Landon and I are looking at each other like, they have to work together. There's no other choice here. It was like, cross your fingers. This better work out.
And so I remember you called us both into the studio, and you made us sit in the hot room, and like Ken and I sat there staring at each other for like probably a good 5 minutes before she even said something. I was like, Ken, you can tell me anything. Like, it's not going to hurt my feelings. Whatever you say, just say it. And she like beat around the bush, and it was something so silly
I don't
too.
even remember what it was, honestly.
I just remembered what it was, like just now. That's why I was laughing. It was about something. It was something with the website. Like you want a different copy on the website or something.
We were
Then
probably
what
a
was
little
like
tired at that point.
on there, and I was like, okay, you can change it, but you like didn't want to offend me or something. I don't know. It was silly. I was like, go for it.
Yeah, we probably were a little tired.
I mean,
We had just done a lot.
yeah, but that's not uncommon though.
No.
It's amazing how
It's
the
the small
tiniest
things.
little
It's true.
things can just build and build and build, and
Yeah.
you don't. Yeah.
Well, and we didn't have our roles like displayed out really well at all, and so like,
At that point, it was like everyone doing
Yeah.
whatever. Like
Right.
it wasn't
Yeah.
until after we opened and really started like kind of just doing things that we kind of
Yeah.
naturally fell into our own roles. But yeah, we didn't have anything really outlined for a good long
because
while.
I remember you had one idea for the website, I had one idea, that I
Mhm.
wanted it to look like, and they kind of clashed a little bit.
Mm.
But no, like it wasn't anybody's specific role to
Yeah.
make
Right.
the final decision.
So this is a good
Just like,
transition
get
then
it
to the question of how do you mitigate the downside of having a partner, or some of those more those challenges you can run into. So obviously we've talked about one of them is outlining clear roles like as early as possible. I mean, it's a startup. There's definitely you'll be kind of stumbling forward for a while, but as soon as possible to be outlining those clear roles. And then Landon had brought up the legal side of things and getting that down. So I mean, typically that's outlining a legal document called an operating agreement, and if you have the funds, a few $100 sometimes to sit down with some lawyers and professionals that actually know what they're doing. And a lot of people I've noticed they shy away from that with a partnership because it is a little bit feels like a prenup in like a marriage. It's like automatically, okay, it's like if we're gonna outline things legally like this, does this mean we don't trust each other? Like you want to shy away from that, especially if it's friends or family. But and who was it? I won't say her name, but there's another member of the community. She's considering going into business with family, essentially.
And she was
she's
running
approaching
into
it.
this.
She's approaching it from. You guys would have insight into this. She's approaching it from. This family member wants to start a business, has all the capital and stuff to do it. She has all the expertise, and they kind of know that like he's not going to do very well without her expertise in there. But she's approaching it from like their family, so don't worry about ownership. Don't worry, just family helps family.
No. She's not approaching it from that way. She wants to have things like outlined, and she's realizing that it's going to be a lot of time and energy and effort on her part. But it's her, I believe, husband who's like saying it's family. You just do things for family. You help them out, and like don't even
It's her
expect to get
husband?
paid. That's telling her this about the other,
gotcha.
like working
It's
with
not-
the other
it's not
family
the
member.
partner.
No. The husband's not the partner.
Yeah, but either way, the dilemma is I want to just help out with the business because I'm family, and family helps family, or friends help friends, but I know I'm going to be doing a lot of the work, but I don't want to like clearly outline these roles and responsibilities and like negotiate ownership for myself, because then it feels like you're going back
Lack
on
of trust or something.
Right. So
Right.
what would you say to that?
Well, like within the context of a family, be so careful because, especially if you do anything pro bono or you're working a lot of hours, it's incredible how it doesn't take many hours of labor where you're not getting paid to make you feel like somebody's screwing you, and within the context of a family, that could cause some really big issues, and so, even more so than with somebody you don't know. Get it in writing beforehand, even if it's on a piece of paper that you both sign. Here's how much I own, here's what I get paid for, here's my time. That's even going to help you a lot when it comes to any issues, because there will be issues. No matter what you do, there will be issues.
Yeah.
I mean, like I've always said, Kennedy and I scored with the business partnership that we have with you guys, but it's just like I think we got really lucky, but even with that, there's been all kinds of stuff that we've had to work through, and so
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know, like, this is another point that is probably worth bringing up, because knowing you, Landon, you're like, I think you would have a hard time finding a business partner that fits with you than most people probably. Because you're very entrepreneurial, you're very like, you want you want like a lot. I mean, it's just who you are. Like, it's not a bad thing. It's like you want as much kind of control over what you're building as possible. So it's like when it comes to choosing a partner, you're probably less open to that idea than some people, because and that's just because you know yourself. Mm-hmm. And so for people listening, I would say that's another way to choose or decide for yourself if you need a partner. You need to know yourself. Like, are you gonna be okay, like, handing over some responsibility, like making a decision with another person, basically? Or are you the type of person that wants, as much control as possible over what you're building, which is not a bad thing. It's just you gotta know yourself. What kind of person are you? Because you could just be shooting yourself in the foot.
It's like, are you a Walter White or a Lennon and McCartney?
Exactly. I mean, there's a lot of good
Walter White.
There's a lot of great partnerships out there with people that for whatever reason they click really well, but like apart from each other.
But I think that's a great point, and I've been trying to think of the way to bring it up. But it's like, and that's true. I have a really hard time with not kind of having a lot of control over, and that's where with Kylon, going into business with Kylon, it was always a lot easier because, well, not always, but a lot of the time it was a lot easier because I trusted Kylon so much as from an integrity standpoint and trusting in his ability and judgment, that even if I wanted to do something that he was disagreeing with, it really gave me pause, because I knew that he, for one, is a very incredible businessman, and it's like, so from that standpoint, and then also from a personal standpoint, whatever the decision was, if it's invest money into this area of the business, or if it's preserve capital until we've gotten through something else to do something, or mine was always a little bit more throw it up against the wall and see if it sticks, and then Kylon was a lot more methodical and steady as she goes. And so understanding your partner's long-term goals, your long-term goals, make sure that do you want to build a business to multi-million and within the next couple of years, or are you okay with paying your way and getting taking 10 years to build something that's never going to have any risk? That's a big part of
Right. And yeah, we had found we balanced each other out really well, because as you just described me, you were kind of the opposite in that you were always, pushing for new horizons and coming up with new ideas, and that person that was always pushing, like myself, in the business outside of the comfort zone, but staying ahead of the competition and like innovating and stuff like that, which didn't come as naturally to myself. And so that's why it worked really well, is because like the illustration I like is like you had your foot on the gas pedal and I had my eyes on the map, sort of.
And that was literal, and I was usually driving and Kylon was usually directing. yeah, exactly. So that's a great scenario where it can work. But
I think another thing too, like another point to this question, because the question was what again?
More mitigating the downside of when things could go wrong. Like, how do you just prep, I guess, for a good partnership?
I don't know if you can like really prep for this, but I feel like at some point, if you have business partners and you trust them and you know them and you have worked with them like we've worked with each other for as many years, at some point you just kind of have to like not care, or like be able to let go and just like trust. Like, it was at the beginning of this year where we were making decisions for Renew, right? And we were kind of at odds with it, or like I wanted to do one thing and Ken wanted to do another thing, and then we brought you boys in and I got voted out. Not out of the business, but like I got voted down.
See you later.
bye. But like I got voted, like no, this is the better decision, or like this makes more sense. And at some point, like you just have to be like, okay, like I put up my, my thoughts and I put up my argument. But if it's not the best option, then all right, like you trust your partners and you just keep moving forward.
A lot of trust.
And we've talked about that some too when we've had various like disagreements or thought like, well, I don't know if we want to head this direction or something. Like I can't tell you how many times you would bring some sort of new idea to the table or something like, I think we should go and do this or spend money on this, and it's like my first reaction would be to like, okay, let's think this through. Let's, make sure this is aligning with, longer term goals and stuff like that. And sometimes I would never like be fully convinced that it was the best idea, but there were times.
Really?
Yeah, really. But it's a very like nuanced thing. But sometimes you just got to be willing to. It's probably the trust thing. Yeah. It's like we would talk and kind of butt heads about stuff, but at the end of the day, one of us could always tell, like one or the other would be holding on to the idea and just really, really pushing for it, and the other was always really quick to recognize like, okay, they're really not giving in so easily this time, like they're really convicted about this, so it's time to sort of, okay, let's do it your way and just let's see what happens. You have the trust factor there.
Because the crazy thing about, business and life in general is like you can try something, and if it doesn't work, you can try something else. Like you can change it again. Like it's not, and at some point you have to be able to just be like, okay, like let's go with it. Like it's not worth me, losing sleep over at night. It's not worth me ruining, the relationship or the partnership or like stressing myself out.
But it's trusting the other person enough to where if they're really convicted and you're making some good like counter arguments and points and stuff, but they're still like, no, I really think we need to do this, to kind of relinquish that control and be like, all right, let's do it and let's see.
Well, and sometimes it's not even majority. Like with Texas, it was only Landon. The three of us, like I remember that meeting, like the three of us were like, no, we just opened the studio, like we have to open up the juice bar in like a month.
So this is a scenario where we had lost a lot of money. We were in debt because we'd kind of taken a risk and failed, and then Texas is basically another big risk that we would take that if it worked would kind of pay everything off and get us out of debt and stuff, and it ended up working, but it definitely was not a fun decision to
or a fun thing
make.
To do.
That wasn't fun. It wasn't fun to do, anyways. But that was a scenario where I remember you being so convicted, like we got to go big or go home, and I definitely wanted to play it, safe, like we'll play it safe, like it'll take longer to pay off debt in this stuff, and there's not a real clear path forward, but at least we're playing it safe, like we're not taking another risk that could just kind of triple our losses this time. But I remember you being convicted enough to where I was like, all right, let's, he's probably right, so let's just do it, and it worked out. So well, I think we're coming close to the end of time here, but did anybody have any other thoughts they wanted to get out there on partnerships before we close it up here?
For all of the negative aspects of what can come with a partnership, there are a few things that can also give you the leverage, that a partnership can.
Yep.
Just like you would leverage the purchase of a property with, limited resources, you can control a lot more because of that. It's the same with a partnership. For me, Kylon and I aren't really in partnership on a daily basis like we used to be, and I think, I really recognize now how much I appreciated having him around when, to compensate for my weak areas, because now it takes extra work on my part whenever I'm doing something to think, okay, what would Kylon do in this scenario? How would he think about it? Slow down, take a deep breath, make sure you're not going to crash the boat, and I think Kylon has mentioned once or twice that he has to kind of put on his Landon hat occasionally, and
I have to try to channel it a lot, and we'll still call each other for advice and stuff, but yeah, it's definitely I get too like buried in the details and in the just
minutia.
Yeah, the doing of things and not not enough on like what's the big vision, what are the big pieces, the 30,000 foot view, and let's get creative and come up with some new, brand new ideas. And that's when I have to sort of channel, Landon, which has helped working with him previously, because then I know he can kind of, it's like the we'll say the angel on your shoulder, It's
Good.
like
Angel, right?
yeah. It's like this little conscious or this voice in my consciousness, like, get your head out of the details, Kylon. So.
I think one last thing too, and it's a big one, like Tay, you were mentioning, about the yoga studio at the beginning of the year, and just my idea that I had and your idea definitely clash. And I think the way you communicate with your business partners just makes a huge difference. Like if we were to go into, those, they were kind of heated, arguments, but we never once put each other down. We didn't put each other's ideas down.
That's a big one.
But we just, kept
The respect factor.
Yeah, we kept like the broad perspective and respected the other person. And I mean, even with Texas, that I remember that being a pretty kind of intense conversation too. But that's, and it ultimately comes back down to finding people with good values and stuff in their own personal life, because that will come out in the partnership too. But when there is some friction in the company between the partnerships, just always keep that broad perspective. Like we're on the same team, this person just has the best intentions for the business, as do I.
Yep.
They might not, they might be really
same.
different, but just always respecting that person, their ideas, regardless if it's not what you think is best.
And it's a detail point, but if you do have friction in partnership, keep it separate from your team. That's a huge. We know so many partnerships who confide in their employees about issues with the other.
Yeah.
It's like parents talking to their kids about the problems with the other
In between
parent.
their spouse.
It's just
that's
toxic.
That's so true. Well, and I think like choosing your battles too is a big one, because we could get huffed and puffed up over tiny little things, but at the end of the day, it's not a big deal, and so
That's true.
I think those are the biggest takeaways I've had from our partnerships over the last few years.
Almost everything we're saying right now could be applied directly to marriage.
Yeah,
and
that's so true.
Parenting.
It's a 2-for-1
and
episode.
and like vice versa. I mean, really,
it's true.
it is. If you have figured out how to have a great marriage or be like a great parent in some aspects, that it's like the same skills apply in a partnership and vice versa. So, the relationship always comes, before business. You're never. I don't remember any time that we've ever been like sarcastic, unless it's been obviously just a joke that everybody's involved in, or, never attacking the person, like who they are, anything like that. So
Just their ideas.
your idea is stupid, but you're awesome. Yeah. Awesome. Well, I would say that's a pretty good episode. So with that, we'll say stay hungry, stay foolish.
Maybe I'll clap at the end of it.